I debated a MAGA Zoomer on Trump's new war, and it did not go well for him. It went really, really poorly. It was kind of a huge shit show, to tell you the truth. And you know it was really bad because I suck at debating, and this kid still fell on his face. I would feel bad for him if he wasn't advocating for more endless wars. But we're going to show you right now. It was on News Nation. What a mess, and the future of MAGA does not seem very bright if this is who they're sending us. Take a look.
So we know President Trump's weighing whether or not to get involved in the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. We've heard a lot of opinions on the show here, the experts, so-called experts, but everyday Americans are also weighing in. This is a new poll from The Economist showing only 16% of Americans support getting involved. 60% majority say stay out of it. Now, with young people, some of this might even be more pronounced. We bring in a conservative commentator, host Jackson Gosnell, and the host of the Bulwark's FY podcast, Cameron Kasky. It's funny, I'll show some numbers in a moment. Jackson, why don't you start us off, and then we'll go to Cameron on the same question. But it is, I think maybe anecdotally it's more pronounced, but this is right now polling fairly unpopular across the board. But young people in general, Jackson, seemed to be hesitant. And we saw this even with the war in Gaza about support for war, maybe. What do you think's going on?
Yeah, Connell, it's good to be with you. I would just say I think that to avoid war is ultimately the goal in anything, right? I think that the president has been trying to do that with some of these talks and discussions. And so just broadly speaking, I don't believe that getting involved in wars is what anyone wants to do, regardless of how old you are, what political party you're a part of. Nobody wants to be involved in war. So let's just say that at the top.
That's probably true. I mean, and that's why I think the numbers across the board are what they are right now. And because we don't exactly know what the involvement would look like either. I will say, Cameron, what do you think of what's going on? For example, in the Democratic Party, like this whole David Hogg stuff has been part of that. I'll put up his tweet about any Democrat who supports this war with Iran needs to be primaried. And he says our generation grew up going through two multi-trillion-dollar wars we never should have been involved in. And he goes on, as you see. So what would you say, Cameron? What's your perspective?
Young people don't want to go to war, and I think the young people who did support Donald Trump did so because he had an America First policy, that he said he was going to be an America First president. What we're learning now is that he is obviously an Israel First president. He likes to act like there's some greater plan here, some greater strategy, but he doesn't know what's going on. He's got his shoelaces tied together. MAGA world doesn't know how to respond to this because some of them are saying Trump ran on peace. He ran on not getting us in any more wars. Now he's just stumbling behind Netanyahu and following them into a bigger disaster. And then some people are saying like, oh no, we should actually be doing this. We should actually be doing more war. So I don't know how MAGA world is going to respond to this, but what I do know is that young people are not buying it.
Well, what do you think, Jackson? So not about the shoelaces tied together part, about the part about the young people who supported Trump. And he did do better than Republicans in recent elections with younger voters, right? By the way, flash up here for the tablet. I just want to make that point about how, yeah, we're having a conversation about young people. This is the Economist poll. I mean, I think the best numbers you have in general like 30 to 44, and that's not very good, 19. So it's low across the board in this particular poll. But what would you say about people who supported Trump, Jackson, and what they're getting here and how that plays into their thinking going forward?
Well, I would agree that Trump is about America first, but I think in putting America first, we have to keep everybody else safe, right? And certainly in putting America first, we're looking more largely at keeping the world safe. And so I think this president's strategy is peace through strength. I think that people are getting exactly what they signed up for. I wouldn't say so much that he is Israel first, but certainly he's going to stand and help our allies whenever needed.
You think he's going in, Jackson? Is that the assumption you're making when you make those comments, or because he hasn't decided yet, or he hasn't announced anything yet?
Well, Ted Cruz says Ted Cruz has said that we're already there.
Well, that's it. We played a little clip of that last hour. One second, expand or finish that, Jackson. We'll come back to Cameron in a second.
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, I don't know what the president's going to do. Obviously, he has access to more intelligence than you and I, so we'll see what ends up happening. But I think the president will make the best decision.
Now, Cameron, you're getting into the split, all right, this MAGA split that's going on. And it's kind of been interesting to watch. From your perspective, you look in on it from the other side. What do you make of that? You mentioned Ted Cruz.
Well, look, Ted Cruz obviously doesn't know what's going on, and he doesn't know how many people are in Iran. He doesn't know anything. And most of MAGA world doesn't. And with MAGA world, what we learn is that it's a cult of personality. At the end of the day, no matter how much pushback Donald Trump gets, they're going to go with whatever he does, right? There was a huge rift on immigration policy. A lot of people were coming out and saying, this is not what I voted for. There was a rift on the H-1B visas until Elon Musk came in and ended that. At the end of the day, no matter how many fights MAGA world gets in with itself, Trump comes out on top because it's not about policy. It's not about making this country safer or better off. It's about doing what Donald Trump says.
All right, respond to that, Jackson. Pop up the tablet again. I'll just look at the Trump approval rating. I mean, I don't know if it matters for him. He is paying a little bit of a price for whatever has been going on the last few weeks here at the end. You see the disapproval has been going back up after it got to about even at the beginning of the month. Go ahead, Jackson.
I think people are allowed to change their mind on certain topics, and I think that policy can shift over time. I also believe that people entrusted this president in November to carry about what they want. And so whether or not he might change or come up with something new, I think the people have entrusted him to do that. And certainly I believe that the president will make the best decision. I don't think it's just getting in line behind one person and doing exactly as he says. I think this is a mandate that he received in November to do what he believes is best, and clearly a large majority of the country entrusted him to do that, and I believe he'll continue to do so.
And I don't know how much support he loses politically, or whether it matters, he can't run again, but I don't know how much support he loses politically, Cameron, say if he does decide to strike against Iran with young people that he did, as I said a moment ago, a little bit better, but especially young men who he did a little bit better with, whether that's an issue broadly. It might be for you, Cameron, but I'm not sure if it's an issue for everybody in your cohort. What would you say?
Well, young people, around my age, we grew up with endless disaster wars in the Middle East, and I feel as though there's a degree to which we've been conditioned to believe that we have to be stuck in endless disaster wars in the Middle East, as though there's no path to peace through diplomacy or negotiation. And with Netanyahu doing everything he can to provoke more violence everywhere he possibly can, we're going to continue seeing it. And again, we just don't know what a better option is because it's been war, from the
time you were a little kid, right? Well, let's make that the last point, Jackson, because that's true for you too, right? Since you were a little kid, it was Iraq, Afghanistan. That's all you've known, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I would argue that it's because of Democrats, right? We had another term of Trump before, and there was not these big problems.
The Democratic president, George W. Bush.
You're right. I mean,
heard that stuff about WMDs.
Okay.
That is a little bit of a rough one, Jackson.
Well, I mean, I think that Democrats largely, they love to get involved in things that they don't need to be involved with, and then Republicans have to put out the fires. I think that largely that's happened over and over again.
Yeah, I have to say the George W. Bush thing's a tough one, though. But I get your larger points, both of you. Thank you for coming on, Cameron. Thank you for coming on, Jackson.